You've seen it happen. A student crosses their arms and refuses to do the work, or they argue aggressively with a teacher. Sometimes they act out with clear vindictiveness, swiping an entire stack of papers right off their desk. The standard administrative response usually follows a strict ladder. It starts with a classroom referral, escalates into detention or lost privileges, and eventually ends in suspension. This flowchart maps that exact disciplinary loop: behavior, referral, and suspension, and the flat line graph running across it reveals the reality of this approach. There is zero improvement in the student's behavior over time. Every so-called problem child is actually a child with a problem that no one has managed to solve yet. In many cases, what looks like mere disobedience meets the criteria for Oppositional Defiant Disorder, or ODD. It is a specific clinical diagnosis defined by a persistent pattern of angry, irritable, and defiant behavior that lasts for 6 full months or more. When schools treat a legitimate, long-term clinical symptom as a simple disciplinary offense, they create a cycle where the behavior persists because the root cause remains unaddressed. To fix the cycle, we have to accurately translate what is happening in the classroom. When a student appears to be communicating, "I won't comply," the reality is often, "I cannot yet self-regulate." ODD rarely exists in isolation. It is almost always a surface-level symptom of something much deeper. Take a look at this iceberg model. The visible tip above the water represents the defiant behavior we see in the classroom. But beneath the surface are massive hidden drivers: untreated ADHD, extreme anxiety, learning differences, or unaddressed trauma. Sending a student home for 3 days does absolutely nothing to address those massive blocks of trauma or anxiety. A suspension cannot teach a child how to regulate their nervous system. True behavioral change requires teaching students the specific emotional regulation skills they lack, rather than repeatedly punishing them for not already having them. Identifying and treating these underlying psychological drivers requires a licensed clinician. It is a medical process, not something that can be diagnosed by counting up office referrals. This diagram illustrates the first proven intervention, parent management training, or PMT. You can see the clinician providing strategies to the parents, who then establish positive reinforcement structures directly with the student. The network then shifts into collaborative problem-solving. Instead of a top-down approach, reciprocal pathways form between the adults and the student to negotiate and resolve conflicts together. Finally, zooming directly into the student's own experience, we apply cognitive behavioral therapy. This helps the individual map out their own thoughts and emotions, allowing their internal reactions to stabilize. When these specific clinical interventions are applied, the research shows they outperform suspension data in reducing repeat incidents and improving long-term behavioral outcomes. Bringing proactive, specialized therapy into an overburdened, highly reactive K-12 school system is historically difficult. MentalSpace School provides the systemic bridge that Georgia schools need to transition away from reactive discipline and directly into clinical support. The core infrastructure relies on same-day teletherapy, placing dedicated teams of culturally diverse, licensed therapists right at the disposal of K-12 campuses. This graphic breaks down the insurance structure, designed to remove financial barriers for families. MentalSpace accepts all major commercial insurances and specifically insures a $0 copay for Medicaid. By embedding this clinical infrastructure, teachers and administrators are relieved of managing complex behavioral health crises, freeing them to focus entirely on education. The system is fully protected by HIPAA and FERPA compliance, and crucially, provides the exact support Georgia schools need to meet the impending HB 268 compliance deadline in July 2026. These 3 bar charts show the measurable impact of the MentalSpace approach: an 89% improvement in student attendance, a 92% reduction in anxiety symptoms, and an 85% family satisfaction rate. Behind nearly every defiant student is a story worth hearing, and with the right clinical support in place, schools finally have the exact tools they need to listen, address the root cause, and help that student succeed.